Well, we're here. Frequency Fridays has begun. So, hope you guys are all ready to get excited. Get one of these little cute little bowls. They're so fun. Really is so much fun. You know, you just got to get your little bowls singing. If you get your bowl singing, it makes all the difference in the world. You know, let's bowl them over today. Anyway, I'm in that kind of a mood. I wanted to thank you for joining me, Karenann McDonald. I am here on my Frequency Fridays, and this is all about sharing and learning and seeing what things are going on. I'm moved, as you guys know, last week, so I'm still kind of half unpacking and half backed, but it's okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, as you can see, the books are coming back, the library's coming back. We're finally getting back in sync a little bit, which is great. And I want to thank you for joining me. I wanted to talk a little bit about biovibing and raw food today. I think that's a really exciting thing because a lot of people don't know what is raw. What is raw living? What is living in the raw? If you look at my juxtaposition, what's the opposite of flip the word and you get war? We've had too much war, so I want to focus on the raw foods and stuff a little bit today and what raw excitement is and having things along that line. So one of the things, I have this great little site. I just finished it up with a client. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this tastes so good. Like, I can't believe this." I said, "I want you to take a look at these recipes and see what is exciting to you." Because a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about. They think I'm talking about rabbit food, and I'm certainly not talking about rabbit food. So I'm going to put the link in here for you because it's so delish. Like, this is what living is for, not what dying is for. This is what living is for. So let's take a look at that. And we'll do a recap also as well in here. So I'm putting the link in there for you. And also for those people that want to get a hold of me, because I know a whole bunch of you guys went to my Karenann McDonald on Facebook. And right now, Facebook has said you can only talk to like probably 2-3 people a day. So guess what? Those 200-300 people will be waiting till like July and August before I can get to them. So if you need, get a hold of my clanmother13 at Gmail. That's with a K, by the way. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look of what am I talking about the raw. Let's talk about these sort of recipes and why do we want to look at this? Because this is the essence of health and everything starts in the vision. It starts in the visualization of taking a look of what is delicious. You gotta, it's not just about the palate. You gotta like satiate your like little eyes here and take a look. So let's take a look at this, will we? Okay, so we're gonna go into my favorite recipe. This is by amisu.com, who also has got nouveauraw.com. One of the things in here that's absolutely amazing, and I always like, forget the list. Let's just go to the photo view, you guys, because it's so juicy. Let's take a look here. Okay, one of the things in here, and I also have got a passion as she does for plant-based foods, not just eating or in the preparation, but also in the sharing. And part of this is about eating healthy, and it's about having tips and techniques. And again, when we're looking at stuff, we're looking at, candida-free, yeast-free, gluten-free, that type of thing. So right now, Amy Sue, bless her little heart, has made over 1,500 recipes for us. So let's take a look. Now, I know it sounds decadent, and you're going to go, what were you thinking, Karen? But I would actually consider, and I have served people like this chocolate coconut mint brownie for breakfast. And you're going, what? And just like their parents went, what? I said, you better learn what's a fruit and what's a vegetable. And I'm giving the children fruits and vegetables. But the way that we're combining it, I said, I've given them more nutrition in either this truffle ball, bliss ball, energy ball, or this little mint than you've probably given them in like half a week. So what is the difference here? Let's just take a look. Let's just savor the moment because it's Friday, right? Now, a lot of these different things, when you look at what we're doing, you're looking at the raw nutrition. In other words, it's not cooked out over 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And what happens when you start cooking foods or water, boiling it at 212? Well, we know what that does. It destroys all the hydrogen. If you're drinking water for power, to get empowered, you need the hydrogen, and the hydrogen bond is broken. So why are we doing things like that? And that's where spring water comes in, right? you slow simmer teas. You don't do things like that for extraction. Anyway, a lot of these different things, when you go into them, they are uncooked or dehydrated, at a slower temperature. And I said, basically, I feel like a little girl that still has her easy bake oven, and that's about the temperature and what you're doing. So anyway, these are just some of the different things, and if they look enticing, that's because they are. And the taste you can do, and what I've always done with mine, is I've always jacked them up with essential oils. So in other words, here we see this cranberry, coconut, star anise in there, your licorice, right? We'll get your star anise and actually put a drop of essential oil in it. And so if you didn't want star anise, oil, what could we do? A drop of lemon oil, a drop of orange essential oil, a drop of peppermint, a lot of the things, a drop of lime, a lot of these things, and there's actually chocolate essential oil, you guys. So this is just one of the great things that we can look at in here. As we go down, a lot of people go, what do I drink? Well, I'm big into doing juicing. But one of the best we know, what you guys call the master cleanser, or when people put activated charcoal in it, we call it black lemonade, right? These are things on how to make, and people are doing this every day or 2-3 times a week. Or today I've made up a pitcher twice this week, and I've put different things in it, but I'm getting that alkaline ginger lemon gut flush. Of course, one of the best things too is that alkalizing watermelon. If you want to add a little bit of like zoom, I actually put in my goji berries. A little bit more zoom. You want a little bit more to fill you or to get the guts going or take a little bit of weight off. What's another option? Add a little half a teaspoon of chia seeds in there, right? Well, what's the idea of making almond milk? Or have you made sunflower milk? I've made it from raw sunflower seeds. So one of the things in here, you can take almond milk or hemp seed or whatever. You're going to take basically 1 cup, whatever your nut or seed would be. And then the other 2 cups is in the water. And again, whether it's maple syrup, a date, stevia, monk fruit, those are different things in here. So again, amazing things to drink. If you haven't tried some of these, and simple, getting the blueberries in there, getting the beetroot, using that. I mean, amazing things. Apple, zucchini. I mean, how many people have got an abundance of zucchinis by the end of the year? Start looking at some of these things. These lavender blue chia drinks. Blue butterfly pea is a great thing because a lot of people like this, like, hot neon blue stuff. Celeriac, right? Look at some of the stuff in here. And again, if you've got a blender or a juicer or a NutriBullet, these are just amazing. So as we start going through here, people are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat for breakfast? I want my oatmeal. Well, again, nuts and seeds, but doing it more in a raw thing. Or if you're going to do porridge, is getting the steel cut oats and you soak them overnight, and then you can slightly heat them the next day. Again, just using quick oats and things like that, that's just packing on the like gluten stuff. It's like not healthy here. So anyway, I wanted to take a look at this, the chia, the different options that you have here, making puddings, blending things up, all sorts of things. I thought you might really like this. How about we make some lavender muffins? How about we make some like breakfast pizza with granola crust? Okay, all great things, children would just love. So this is like, I just wanted to get you guys all like excited. It's like having an orgasm taking a look at some of this stuff. There are cheesecakes, there are breakfasts, there are candies. And I wanted to go into the cheesecakes because one of my favorite things to make in the world is cheesecakes. I will go out to events, and as the guys know, David Hickey, you're one of them. Okay, the father of basically all the sound baths here in Canada. 20, 30 years later, he's still going, man. That's where your sound baths developed. They're from people from him having the vision and the foresight, doing this with the gongs and the bowls and going from one end of the ocean to the other. Anyway, in here, the first thing it says, I'm coming. Are you bringing chocolate? Not how are you? Are you coming? Are you bringing chocolate? Right? Raw cacao. They know how I do this stuff, right? These are very simple, easy to make. This is not like you guys have to cook. If you've got some, just basically that crust, I'll tell you, would be like just putting a couple figs in and putting some walnuts, blending them up, and boom, you could put a little vanilla if you want, a little bit of coconut sugar. Boom, it's done in a food processor. Or my NutriBullet. I'm telling you guys, these are all NutriBullet like friendly recipes, blender recipes. It's done. Put it into whatever you want. I put it into the bottom of Rubbermaid little containers or things like that, pate containers. And then you could do your filling, and a lot like as you can go into. This is actually done a lot as you're seeing with the cashews, and you can use different nuts. You can also use coconut, the inside of a coconut, and blend them up with the right, sweeteners, whatever you want, and just decorate them. And they're going to the freezer. And that, I'm joking, is less than 10 minutes to make. Freeze it, and I'm eating it in an hour. Okay, these do not take long. It's not like you're going in here and baking and having to do this and, what's it to clean up a blender or two a couple times. So as I said, very, very simple things, crackers and stuff like that. Ferments are big. What are the dairy substitutes? Like that's what's killing people right now is a lot of this dairy and cheese stuff. To see how you can actually make a cashew cream cheese, how you can make an almond cheese, how you can make any kind of cheese. I've made with sunflowers because they're so cheap, especially with things, prices going up and up and up. But here are some different things. Hazelnut milk, almond milk, really simple. It's in a blender, so quick to do, less than 10 seconds, and it's fresh and it's got the living essence of those foods, and I think the last one I want to go into was people go, what am I going to eat for a meal? I want my burger. I want my chops. I want whatever. But when you get into the idea of using, and again, dried fruits and vegetables, frozen desserts, it's getting warm out, guys. What's your granola substitutes? Well, let's go look at Italian here. We got Italian and we've got kale chips and we got main sides. So we're going to go through that today because so important. Okay. Making almond ricotta cheese. Look at that basil, kale, whatever pesto recipe you want to talk about. I've got a cute little, basically a spiralizer. You can get them for like $5, or if you go to any marketplace or you go to almost any thrift store, 10 to 1, you'll usually find a spiralizer because people kind of do it, don't know what to do. But my children love this. I would take that zucchini, half a zucchini or whatever it may be, and you put it through a spiralizer, and next thing you know, it's their spaghetti replacements. There you go. Basil, pesto, and zucchini needles, right? And my children, they're like, oh, we're done with this raw thing, Mom, for a while. You know what? I just heat those up in the saucepan. That's it. It's like, put it on medium heat for like 5 minutes and it's hot. It's as hot as cooking your spaghetti stuff. You can't eat it more than that. So I want you to take a look at some of this stuff, and then making the tarts and making your cabris and making your marineros or garlic dill zucchini. Like, is this not to live for? Like, seriously? Flatbreads and all sorts of stuff here. And I actually started doing quiches and burgers and falafels and all these incredible things here and putting those in the dehydrator and putting them in the morning and come back and it's done. Well, if that's not enough, that was the Italian part. But let's just go in here. Kale chips. How many of you guys have got kale from the garden or go get it? All you have to do is put some salad dressing on the kale. And if you don't have a dehydrator, put your oven on 200, put this on a tray with some parchment, boom. And in 15 minutes, you have kale chips and you just saved yourself $10. Oh yeah, have you ever tried chocolate kale chips? Cheesy kale? How many kale varieties? I mean, these are great things because potato chips are adding up. I fell over. They're like $6 to like $8, $7 at the store. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, let's go to the main dishes because I'm on this roll right now. Refried beans, cheeses, all sorts of things. Apple cabbage slaw. I did that now. Okay, all sorts of different things in here. I like making, these are instead of deviled eggs, and you can actually get the right seasoning and almost taste the same. And let me tell you how I'm going to make chocolate avocado next. But anyway, vegan avocado is basically like making guacamole and then putting them on a dish and, using that as your dip here. Because a lot of people just want to have something that tastes similar. And by the way, it might sound really weird, but you can actually take 3-4 avocados and you mix them up with a little bit of maple syrup or agave, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of like salt in there. And then you know what? You put some raw cacao in there. And next thing you know, in a NutriBullet or a food processor or whatever you want to do, I have got chocolate mousse pudding made with avocado. That's how I used to give it to my children. Again, the idea of using these different things very simply, like black beans and mushrooms. I just love my neighbor. I just moved here. This is great. My neighbor came in and brought a whole plate full of like oyster mushrooms. Guess what they're going to become pretty soon? A mushroom burger. Anyway, and how am I going to do soups? That's the next best thing. Everyone goes, how are you doing soups? Well, really, 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 really simple is I'm going to take those mushrooms, and basically what I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to put it in the NutriBullet, and I'm going to put in with a little bit of my nut milk, and I'm going to put my seasonings, my salt, pepper, and whatever else I want in there, and I'm going to blend it up, and then I'm going to put it on the stove and just heat it. So these are really simple things. Like I said, people just, you got to try this out. This is the best thing ever, is looking at this Nouveau Raw. So hopefully I've enticed you into going like, oh my gosh, this is great, right? So how are you guys all doing today? So I want, people to start feeling healthy and happier, right? The more you look at this, the more that you feel, the more you're going to change your outlook on things, right? And the other thing too is that these are very simple. Like I talked about, going out and just going to the woods. We went like 30, 40 feet. She came back with like, I just foraged a whole bunch of oyster mushrooms. I mean, it's great. Those are things you can do. I can dehydrate them. I can season them and then just put them in the oven, and you think they were better instead of chicken breasts, because we know how to do it. It's really what people want is texture, and they want the taste. They want the seasoning. Do you want it sweet or do you want it savory? That's basically what we're looking at, right? So those are actually what's pretty cool there. The other thing too, like I said, that is having the raw essence, and we have to have the integrity of our food. And that's what the problem is that there's no integrity in the food anymore, right? You start hearing, especially like the Canadians, things like, good gosh, for 12 miles outside our landmass, they sure have a lot of influence out here. It's got to go. But, you look at what's going on, and everyone is being just absolutely compressed. You can't go anywhere and there's not something adulterated. So, and again, the price is going up, gas is going up. So, we don't need a 15-minute city, but it's starting to look that way, that you're going to be able to forage what's in the actual area, right? And it says, hi, your grade's doing all right, looking for some blood purifying remedies. Well, Healing Touch 8896, we can do that. So one of the things in there, when we want to take a look at what are some of the best things that we can do, one of my favorite books in the world is the Essential Desk Reference, okay? And I'll put those in there for you. I've always said this is one of the best things for herbs, oils, cleansing, whatever you want. The answer, probably a lot of them, most of the time, will be in here. And it's color. Just like I showed you color recipes, I want to have things that are in color because they just look nice. Anyway, that's the same thing. We can go into blood and stuff like that. Blood, I will tell you, always mimics the colon in my experience, which has been vast. And so one of the things in here is that one of the things that we want to take a look at is, as the colon thickens, how many people have seen that colon? Okay, so when you start looking at the colon and you see that it is actually plaqued up, right, looking like crap, your blood dot. Let's start with cleaning out the colon, because the colon is the most essential organ to cleaning blood and having healthy blood. I don't care if you've been spiked in lipid nanoparticles, the more that you absorb, and all your top athletes, all your yogis, everything else, raw foodists, almost all of us are doing enemas, colemas, or colonics, or all three. And what happens in here is that when you're starting to look at that, is that because you want to be absorbing, right? We want to absorb 100% of what's going in here. And I know sometimes this makes no sense. Try and talk to an MD. That's not going to happen. But in your case, this is what we're going to do. We're going to show you why. because we want the blood to be cleaned. So we're going to go look at that for you for just a minute, because that's a great question today. Here is the colon. Here is my favorite little chart here. Okay. There is a bioVibe in there, that black goo. Okay. Similar to what's clotting in people's arteries and veins, right? In circulation these days, the clot shot, as we call it, the white calamari stuff and plastic and polymers are getting in there, and all the debris, is it's basically smothering. It's the same thing with the colon. So anytime you get leaky gut, right, doesn't mean that you don't have normal bowel movements. It's about getting this stuff out. So what we want to do is get this colon clean so that you can absorb all your minerals, all your vitamins, okay? All the digestive enzymes. And that's another thing. That's why people are using all these things called nattokinase, right? Because all this stuff is getting in. And you can hear it gets out, it gets into the lymphatics, gets into the capillaries, it gets all over the place. And that's one of the reasons why. So when we start cleaning the colon, we start getting our blood cleaned out. And when you start getting platelets and plasma, and you start getting your hemoglobin and your iron and all those fun little things we look for, and white blood cells and red blood cells, that's one of the quickest ways to do it. One of the things as well is what are really great blood cleansing herbs, right? And I think you guys know most of them, right? You guys are all the experts in here. You guys are in here. So one of the things that you're going to see quite often, right? Things like oregano. You're going to start seeing things like hawthorn. You're going to see things like red clover, massive, 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 massive. Things like holy basil. So all those things really help bind really heavily. Coriander, cumin, almost ginger. Again, really powerful things. I have a little recipe as well. And it's an old Ayurvedic one. And they called it Nature's Angioplasty, which was great because it would start cleaning out the arteries and the plaque and the blood and the colon and everything. But it basically was just brilliant. And this Nature's Angioplasty was basically taking garlic and ginger and heating it up with either lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. And you heat it up into basically kind of like a chutney, basically. And you let it cool down, and then you start actually letting it cool down, and you take out about a teaspoon a day. And this recipe was actually so amazing. I used it like for actually on salad dressing. You wouldn't know. But this was one of the things in here. And so I don't know if you've heard about this, but this is like the bomb in here. So one of the things here, I'll just kind of show you where to look. But again, I know I say ancient Chinese secret, but again, Bible medicine, right? So if you take a look at this, I put Nature's Angioplasty garlic recipe, or put Ayurvedic, or call it whatever you want. So in here, it was garlic, lemon. And like I said, what can you substitute for that? It was lemon juice, so they would put apple cider vinegar, ginger, and then I usually used maple syrup. Some people use honey. But what it started doing is it starts cleansing things out. And literally, I've seen people that had like, huge buildups in their arterial walls. Oh, you need to use this drug and that drug and more testing and blah, blah, blah. And start doing this. And after 3-4 weeks, it had just about disappeared. I've actually seen people reverse a little bit of gray hair doing this, right? So this is one of the things in here. And so look that recipe up. There's YouTubes and all sorts of things in here. So, and then I'm going to get into the essential oil part of it. So like I said, this is not new. This is one of my favorite things. And like I said, Nature's Angioplasty, garlic recipe, put Veda, put some ginger in there too. And basically it's really simple, by the way. Like I said, you take all those things, you can blend them up and then heat them. And then, what I used to do is just put them into a NutriBullet, and it's always a 1-to-1 ratio. So it would be a quarter cup of this, a quarter cup of this, a quarter cup of this, and a quarter cup of that. There you go. So 1-to-1 ratio all the way. It's the easiest thing I always remembered in here. So again, what are the things as well that we have to do? You've got to be alkaline. And like I said, the enema, I would be using herbal tea enemas. You can steam if you want Tuesday, Thursdays, and do enemas Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or flip it the other way around and take the weekend off. There are many different things in here. So when you started looking also for blood cleansing, there's stuff called bloodroot. You can start getting to the heart circulation, like the hawthorn and stuff like that. But blood cleansing, when we want to go into, let's say, I would go essential oils. I always go for a lot of stuff, which would be things like what? Take a guess. It's going to be things like parasite cleansing, and also the essential oils in here will be things like clove. And that's why a lot of people do blood cleansing with clove teas as well, or herbal extracts. So those are something that you might want to take a look at. You look at almost all of these in here, you're going to see the same herbs. Beetroot, juicing, beet carrot. But again, back to cleaning these in here, you're going to see the same herbs. Beetroot, juicing, beet carrot. But again, back to cleaning the blood and circulation. Burdock, dandelion, sarsaparilla, calendula, Oregon grape extract, which again, they're parasitical, right? They're for dealing with parasites. So those are really, really huge in there. So as I said, a lot of these essential oils are excellent for cleansing, in there. So if you haven't tried some of those, that might be worth taking a look at, because really we want to basically get the cool and get the clean, and one kind of reflects the other, and so if we had people, like I said, going into doing frankincense, along that line, using, like I said, they don't dissolve, they're not cleansing. That's a big difference from what you want. That's why a lot of people are using nattokinase, but we have some people react weird to nattokinase. So you might want to look at that. But one of the things in here is things like geranium oil, things like that, like cayenne pepper, things like that, eucalyptus oil, lavender oil, peppermint oil, tea tree. Thyme is amazing, absolutely amazing. So it depends on what you want to go into, similar to arrowroot, like turmeric and stuff like that. So those are things that you can actually go on that are actually cleansing the blood naturally. Right? And again, it doesn't thin. You can never thin out and go the other way. It's different than drugs, where you got all the dangers and the problems of it, but not with what we have with essential oils. Okay, we're going to take a peek in or see if there's anything in here. So, Cosmic Mick is here. It's a cosmic day. Always an info bomb. Thank you. More relaxing than listening to a UAP disclosure. Yes, that's unidentified aerial things up there. I could tell you some, but that's okay. We'll let other people do that today. Rachel was asking, hi, just wondering how to cook with chocolate nibs. Thank you. Yep. And Healing Touch, thank you for the reminder. The clove, dandelion is coming in season. Oh yeah, go out in my backyard. They're all over the place. Just get them. You got the leaves, you've got them. You can dig them up. They can be great, dehydrated. Just let them go out there. So back to the chocolate nibs. I love chocolate nibs. I unpacked a whole bunch. So the other day it's like, oh, I realized I had 3 things of chocolate nibs. I was separating them out. But I use chocolate nibs, by the way, in tea. Did you know that? So one of the things as well, I use, and again, raw cacao as opposed to whatever, but how to use the cacao nibs is really important. Okay, so you can use them to decorate because they're kind of crunchy, but I always found it's a little too crunchy. But if you want to do the nibs, a lot of people will put them into smoothies. And I'm not any different than that. The other thing I like to do is, because if you don't know what the cacao nibs are, and people go, what is she talking about? But hopefully you do know. So I'm just going to show you what we're talking about. And so in here, in the cacao nibs, and I have actually David Wolf's book here. I think I just got it actually. Put it into my thing. What we're going to do, let's look at those cacao nibs, shall we? Okay, so basically what we have, yes, I find his book here next to me. Okay, so what we're doing is we're taking the pod, and the pod is huge. It's got this milky white substance in it, if you've ever seen a cacao pod. And then what happens is when you break them down a little bit, they're like, bits and pieces of cashew or nuts, and that's what it is. that, cacao. And so you can, when you keep blending it down, it will become powder. That's what raw cacao powder is. So again, most people don't know that, basically that chocolate, the cacao comes from a pod. And once the pods are out, they're put in piles, fermented for about a week. They take them out. And by the way, in the original tribal way, men were never allowed to touch chocolate or cacao. It was only considered the females that were the high priestesses, were the guardians. They were the, women of the temple. They were the matriarchs. They were clan and tribal, but they didn't allow men to do this. This was considered to be very sacred stuff, by the way. Okay. So the other thing I like to put them in here is actually into chia pudding, because they kind of soften as you put them in with your chia pudding. You can actually soak them overnight too. And I've never really kind of just, liked them, but you can just eat the pure things. And then again, I like to use them as a garnish. And one of the things I can do in the garnish is actually I'll make bliss balls or things like that. And again, soak them a little bit or with some goji soaked in, and I use them in bliss balls. Or I would make raw cacao and use them as part of the ganache on here. But absolutely, yeah, they're kind of weird. But you know what? Most people don't think about it, but I put them in my tea. So when I have a tea press, I'll put whatever on and then throw them in there. The other thing, you're probably going to laugh, but you won't laugh because you know it's me, is I would use cacao nibs. I use them in yoni steams. And you can also simmer them with the tea and then use them in enemas. So I've used them in yoni steams and in enemas and in colon hydrotherapy. So that's one of the most incredible things. So if you haven't got this book, it's absolutely great. This has been like a David Wolf thing for me forever. I think I've had this like 15 years. Anyway, this is great. It's all about how to use cacao and chocolate. And there's a whole stuff in here about cacao and cacao nibs and stuff like that, and recipes as well. So I would always, I could make some desserts and then just put them in here. So one of the things as well that's really cool is Malcolm Saunders, another friend of mine at the Light Cellar. You could look at the Light Cellar in Calgary because they ship all over the world too. Is they could do it here, but I really like putting them into like bliss balls and different things here, kind of like granola. And have you ever done chocolate bark? So chocolate bark is another thing that's absolutely phenomenal. And chocolate bark, as I said, there's your bliss balls, right? So we could do some bliss balls and just put them kind of loose into here too. But that might be something that you might want to try. Those are sort of, I think, the more common ways that I tend to use them or have used them. And like if you're doing desserts, it can always be kind of like a bit of a topping in there. But that's one of the things that I think would be really great to do. Anyway, there you go. So if you haven't looked at this, Malcolm's book is also really great. And I think I haven't unpacked that yet, but he's got another great thing on doing raw cacao. So there's quite a few things, like I said, from a nutrition point of view, absolutely amazing. If you haven't looked at this, these are just pure antioxidants and just loaded with minerals. Like this is one of the highest things I was telling people today. It's not just a natural antidepressant here, but it is actually what it's got here. And most people don't know the difference between even how we type it out, but this is a very important point because people don't know the difference between what is raw cacao and what is cocoa. So in here, let's take a look at. So CACAO is cacao. The other one, when they cooked the crap out of it, it was called cocoa. Remember hot cocoa? Now the buzzword is cacao. So again, that's where basically there's more antioxidants, minerals, and vitamins and everything in here, right? So most of us are using raw cacao, and I will even use raw cacao, but I would also use sometimes some raw carob powder. So there's a big difference in here between the cacao and stuff like that. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about chocolate, by the way, and cacao is that anyone take it, it's got caffeine. It actually has very little caffeine. What it has is theobromine in it. So those are some of the things in there. But when you start getting into the antioxidants and how powerful this is, and the bliss in the what's called P, it's PEA, but it's a phenylalanine. that basically it is like the same chemical when you fall in love. It's absolutely amazing. And so these are some of the things in here that I think, why do people get antidepressants when you have this? These are actually, and there it is, it's the P there. Okay. So when you actually look at this, why are people taking drugs? It just blows me, right? This and the animides in here are like a sister to cannabis, to cannabinoids. And so the neurotransmitter in here is basically amazing. These are the bliss chemicals, like when you fall in love. So the more ways you could use cacao, raw chocolate, and doing raw chocolate bark, that would be something that you might want to put a little bit of the nibbies in if you want to have a little bit more texture, just like goji berries. I don't usually like dry, they should be soaked. And you can eat the goji berries and have that. So, when you start making, things like bliss balls, and I hope everyone know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bliss balls. And we're going to do cacao ones and with nibs and stuff like that. These are very simple. These are like nothing to make. And I'm just going to show you how bloody simple it is. People make things way too bloody complicated. You know that? And that's the problem when we start looking at some of this, is that, people just do not realize how simple you could be making this stuff. It's not rocket science. It doesn't take a long time to do it. And one of the things in here, like I said, why pay 10 times the price? So let's take a look at a recipe. And this is for a lot of the guys. Like, seriously, I was on the road with a lot of guys for weeks teaching these kind of raw foods and stuff. Okay, who hasn't seen bliss balls? My gosh, $9 for what? 6 of them? It's ridiculous. Anyway, there's all the, but I always teach, let's go to the images first. See what floats your boat in here. So there we go. Oh, first thing up, cacao nib bliss balls. Okay, any of these can be made, and you can make them even if you want chocolate or roll or things like that. So these are one of the simplest, easiest ways to do, and make it 10 different ways here. So these bliss balls are absolutely phenomenal. Peppermint essential oil, some with lemon essential oil. You can go cookie dough kind of stuff. So like I said, all those things you can do kind of like a pumpkin spice and still run them in. So there's my idea on the cacao nib recipes today. So anyway, what should we talk about today? Anyone else has got anything exciting? I wanted to, I'll put in the, into the chat room for you. I actually did a show with Jennifer, and Jennifer is amazing, Jennifer Smith. And what she did, we just did a show that just came up here, and it just got released today. And she's got a funny little channel called Being Human. I said, do you know what human really means in law? It means like monster and sea monster. And we're not humans, and that's part of the, if you're learning treaty, tribal law, even common law lingoese. But anyway, she goes, no. So I said, well, anyway. But what you want to do, here's the YouTube link. It's for her channel called Being Human. And one of the things this is part 1. And we just talked a lot more about health and different things that were going on. And then we're going to have a part 2 coming up, which will be, I think, really interesting as well. And so this is now on YouTube, Rumble, and Telegram. So you can take a look at that. And I really wanted to get this out because she's amazing. So give that woman some love. Jennifer needs some love over there. You can do some up there. So that's one of the things that we have. So that was one of the fun things. And again, a lot of you, you heard that I did the show with Danny Henderson. That was great. We'll probably do some more coming up in the near future. I still have some health ones to do with Carrie Cassidy because, as you know, we started talking about that with Carrie Cassidy. And 5 minutes before we went on the air, what happened? She learned all about basically that there was an issue about going in and, with David Wilcock just passing. So anyway, and things are happening, whether they happened or didn't happen, things are changing. And we are seeing, it doesn't matter what shows I'm going on to. I love watching Michael Bradbury, right? Mr. MB333. He's always live almost every day. It's great because I want to see all the weird stuff going on here. Of course, Dabu, 0077. He's got, everyone's talking about the UFO files being released and the deception. And if that's not too much there, well, we got the H virus. The battle's coming in. I mean, and you guys, I want you to be prepared. You need to have baking soda. You need to have some chlorine dioxide, or you need to have whatever, water purification, MMS, call it whatever you want. And you better have a whole slew of at least 1 to 2 dozen essential oils in here, So these are what's coming up here that people really need to get, their stuff into. You got to get the ducks in a row. Things are happening. We all know they're happening here, And all of a sudden, what today? New York Prepper comes up, right? Trump releases evidence of alien file. Oh, well, there we go. Okay, so this is going to consume everyone for, a few more days, and then we'll get over that too. But, there's other things happening. You look at Stefan Burns. You look at Stephen Walker at JWTV. Just loved, Stephen there. You start looking at some of this stuff, and holy enchiladas, what's going on is that there are volcanoes going off. Their ley lines are being cracked, and these bunkers are being hit, which is, moving all our little ley lines. And then if you don't have that, we've got the 3I Atlas just evicted ISIS from the orbit today. Whoa, it's barely changed its path. Would we ever think we would see something like that? So yeah, I mean, why go to that? You're right. We could just listen to my channel. We'll have weird stuff coming on. I thought that was funny. Okay, serious question. How do we stop the government from forcing us to take drugs against our rights along with the doctors? I've always talked about nature's law is not common law. I hope you guys realize that. So let me say that again. Nature's law is not common law. And I had the stupid books in here. It's not like I didn't study all that stuff, and it bores me actually, quite frankly, for the most part. But when you start getting into all that sort of stuff, basically you need to know that the Constitution was based off the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution. So take your constitutions and your charters of rights and everything else and throw them out there, because since they started doing, just notice I got a whole bunch of black marker I've been moving, all that sort of stuff has been thrown out. You're under basically, not only is tribal and treaty law supersedes it, but you've got a soft military martial law right into place. So really, they don't have to, this common law, whatever stuff doesn't float. Neither does the private law. The private law means that you're joining basically the military Illuminati and the monarchy, thinking that you're an elitist, part of the Elohim and the Anunnaki, and you think you should get a break from everyone else. Again, a real elitist approach to things, right? But these are the whole things too. And when you actually get your amendment stuff, the minute you start claiming, saying, or someone would claim, I'm evoking my First Amendment, my Fourth Amendment, I'm pleading the Fifth, I am Constitution, I've got the rights to charter, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. You are now putting yourself into that jurisdiction. You're no longer like being in the, the big cosmos laws or the divine laws or the creator laws. You want to be back into like, going into high school and to be in that. So not a great thing to do. One of the things is we've done a lot of stuff about what's called savage sovereignty. Okay. I am a savage. And a sovereign means that when people want to be a sovereign, it means you have acknowledged basically who your clan mother is, and you are under. Sovereign does not mean sue, it's sovereign, under the reign of the current matriarch, not the king, under the matriarch / queen / clan mother, who would have appointed the male chieftains and male councils and stuff like that. When you want to do that, I haven't had a problem. My stuff has been sent in internationally. Anyone that chooses to step into that is covered, right? It's what you choose to do. And no one here in this room, I mean, I could tell you how to do it, but I would never would anyway. But unless you have actually sent in a specific type of thing to absolve, abdicate your original sovereign rights as a savage, as clan, as treaty, you still can step back into it. So even though you were in a different jurisdiction, public, private, inhabitant, you can step back and go back into original law. And so I think this is really, really important. So one of the things someone was saying in here, Tony Pantalleresco, it's P-A-T-T-A-L. I always think it pair of pants and he's tall pants. Anyway, it does a video on how to make an elixir with vanilla and pepper for depression. That's great. But you know what? What's the best thing for depression is baking soda water, is getting alkaline. The minute you're alkaline, that actually starts subsiding the depression. All your essential oils actually can cross most of them the blood-brain barrier. Take some lime, inexpensive, smell it, and you'll be automatically doing like this. All your citruses are natural antidepressants and mood elevators. That's why you see grapefruit cleanses, lemonade, master cleansing, all those sort of things. And so a lot of stuff like that, I would use essential oils. I have black pepper and I have vanilla and essential oils as well, which you could always put them in pills or put them in there. So best antidepressant, take an enema, by the way. That's the best detox. You want a piloerection and see everything standing up, go detox. And within 2 seconds, you're going to get rid of everything that is no longer serving you since the last time you had one. Ask anyone. Ask any clinician what we do as a colon hydrotherapist. You can get rid of the most incredible traumas that you've ever had, including sexual abuse and ritual abuse. Vanna said, my mom is a licensed practical nurse who wants me and kind of forces me to take some meds, and I pretend to take them. Well, I don't know if you're living with them, and I don't know how old you are, but no one can force you to do anything. And this is something I really got to say to people. One of the first things, it may sound harsh, but it's actually so true. I remember I was out with my friend, and she came over to visit, and we were with another girl, and they were saying how they were capitulating to basically please everyone, to pacify everyone. You're not being truthful. You're actually, that's what's called almost like multiple personality or alters. You're putting on a facade. You're like an actor personality. That's where it comes from, the word. That's where person and human comes in, by the way, is that I'll never forget Kim saying, I used to be like you, but then I decided not to be a people pleaser. So one of the things in there is, and I'm not here to do that. I can go into coaching or consultation. That's what I do professionally. You can always book for an appointment. People need to get their lives together. And when people start taking meds and then pretending to take them and throwing them out or wasting money, even worse, if they're paying for it, that's even more ridiculous. Again, I don't know how old you are, but the whole idea is that you need to be, if you're over 18, well, gosh, if you're over 16, right? That's about being self-empowered. And I don't care if it's a mother, I don't care if it's a father, I don't care if it's the government. Is that when we allow people to step on my parade, you know, even if you went into, as you call the lodges, you guys, like, you know, the Freemasonry and the Illuminati, what do they have? Masons and master masons. That means you have become autonomous, right? You're not going to let someone else or capitulate or take the knee to someone else, even though they like to think you do that. But as a sovereign, you don't do that. And so how you deal with them is up to them. But when you're pretending to take them, no. You know, that's not only lying to someone else. I just can't do that. That's operating in fraud. That's me. I'd rather take the consequences of whatever, you know, and if I'm not living with them, I really wouldn't care, you know, and I made decisions like that with a lot of my relatives. You know, if you can't support me and enjoy this, then you're not there for me. That's not what having a relationship is, actually. And those are things that you got to, you know, look at how you do that and how people start, you know, getting in there. Then again, move. Look at getting into a different area where you don't live. I've even had people that in British Columbia, I hate provinces because I don't recognize those territories. I'm on the Sinaitic territory, but as people think, you know, British Columbia, then go to somewhere else in a different jurisdiction. You know, if you think that the mental health in that area is going to go to another area where you're not on the records. People can move states to states, especially if you're in the States. I don't know where you live, but if you're in the States, in an hour or 2 hours, you can be in another state. They don't even have your records there. So those are one of the things in there. And like I said, you're living in fear and she's allowing that. right? So she's afraid she's going to send me to, an institution. Again, get yourself healthy, right? And like I said, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you're living in the same house, whatever. There's many different things here, but there are ways to do it and get away with that. But anyway, those are things. And again, those are what counseling. And again, I'm into holistic counseling. That's what I'm in for, doing biofeedback. I suggest people, there's a new one that's out. I'll show you that maybe today. If you haven't taken the Genius Biofeedback, I suggest you do that. Look at your own self. Look at your minerals, look at your vitamins, right? An LPN, that's like ridiculous. I don't even listen to MDs, let alone an LPN. What's a carrier gonna know about this stuff, right? And on top of it, LPNs haven't taken pharmaceuticals, let alone natural health. But you have to look at your minerals, your vitamins. You look at the parasites. I don't know if you've been injected. I don't know if you took PCRs. I don't know how far you've capitulated down the rabbit hole and stuff. And so one of the things that's so, so important is to do that. Anyone, I could put the link in here if they want to go do or they can actually email me at karenann13@gmail. You can go look at that. If not, I have a really cool one that just came out. And it didn't just come out. I've shown it before, but these are very simple. It's called a BioVibe, and I'll just start it from the beginning. These are going to be really kind of fun things here. So what you do is that you go in and you can record your voice. So this is like the BioVibe is different than the Genius. The Genius breaks down everything: what mineral, what vitamin, what neurotransmitter, what herb, what oils I'm doing. And those are simple things to do. So this is a bioacoustical voice profiling. So we're still going to A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U. I feel like I'm speaking low. A-E-I-O-U, 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 A-E-I-O-U. So what you do is a 15-second signature. You can say your name and just keep repeating the vowels A-E-I-O-U. It's not rocket science, okay? And then it says upload your voice. Your voice then comes to a category. There's 20 categories here. Let's say I just wanted to work on my mental wellness, but you need to work on nutrition. You got to work on what's causing this, right? And that's where consultation is. So if you want, I do consults all the time. You get on Zoom or FaceTime, preferably Zoom, and we do that. But let's say I wanted to go into here and I wanted to look at the mental wellness issue. Do you need more love, more joy, whatever? People that are oppressing people, that's not giving you your autonomy, but I'm not going into that speech today. All you have to do is go here and it'll start putting out the frequencies. They are always meant to be done with headphones and earbuds. That's it. They are out here. This is free to use for a week. The Genius is free to use for a week as well, where you put yours in here, take your picture, your biofield. There's also one called voicebiofeedbackscan.com. So go to my thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff, or email me and I'll get you the links for that. So one of the things in here is that one of the things, like I said, is that there are so many different venues for this. But to me, there's also something called pH Happy Caps. And I know they send them all over to the States as well. There's a company called True Hope Canada. And True Hope Canada has got what's called Empower Plus. What they found, and it was proven, not only through the States and Canada, is that basically what they did is that it was what pigs do, right? They start, trying to eat their tails and eat this and eat that, or like cows and stuff. Why do they have blue salt licks, electrolytes? And that's what they found with the pigs. And so what happened is all these people that were depressed, bipolar, schizophrenic, you name it, anxiety, I don't care what the hell their damn diagnoses are that are all wrong on the DSM-3, 4, 5, and whatever number they're up to. But anyway, what you have in here is that they were nutritionally deficient. When they compounded it, the same thing that they would have done for the animals to a woman's weight or a child's weight or whatever, they did that, and in less than a week, they were all not depressed, didn't have bipolar, and didn't have schizophrenia, and whatever else stupid thing they thought. Okay? That's similar to what we're talking about when you're getting in the black lemonade recipe and the essential oils and doing the parasite cleanses and getting that in. And you're putting in that amount of nutrition. Like, that's why people are doing parasite cleanses now, because they realize that the bugs are in there, even if it's candida, yeast, and whatever, fungus and mold, they're eating all their bugs. They're eating the bugs are eating them, and then they eat the nutrition, and you have nothing. So it's really that simple. We can go into a lot of things in here. And like I said, a lot of essential oils in there. Then I was going to another outside the box mentorship. Ooh, we got someone from outside the box. What are your thoughts on the carnivore diet? I don't. I'm actually a vegetarian. And I've been vegan. I've been raw food. I've even been a Solarian and a breatharian for a month. So I've gone through all that. I started like anyone usually is. I was raised on the sickening Canadian standard diet, like the American standard diet, which is all crap, right? And you got to remember, our grandparents ate basically naturally. A lot of them were gardeners and stuff, and they came in from wherever. They were gardening, they were tending, they had heirloom seeds. Back in the 60s and 70s, the 80s, what did they do? Mackenzie's came out and they all started planting GMO seeds because they didn't realize they weren't doing that. They didn't start doing seed saving. So they moved into the cities. So what did they do? They started buying different things like Mackenzie and other seeds that are genetically modified and hybridized. So then they started growing for the next generation, my mom's generation, all hybridized food, not even realizing that, right? That was the correlation there. And then when you get into my generation, right, that hopefully some of us have turned this around, right? Remember, it takes just about 4 generations to wipe out the genetics. It takes about the actual system, what it needs. In here was that if you look at the food part of it, right, there's Dr. Sebi. There are optimal health. Everything that's based on the therapeutic or Essene or even scriptural or Genesis, whatever you want to call it, is usually going into more raw foods. And if you can't do that and can't do juicing, you can get a little inexpensive bullet. You can get all-in-one meal replacements. One of my favorite ones I do all the time is, it's probably the best antidepressant in the world. How many of you guys know what phytoberries are? pH berries. Has anybody ever heard of phytoberries? Do you know what phytoberries are? So that's from a company. And like I said, those bliss balls, that's the best antidepressant on the planet. My gosh, right? So one of the things in here, if you take a look at it, we can go, and I show that all the time to my clients here. And I'll just give you a quick little synopsis of some of the best things you can do. Because it's not about depression. It's not about any of these things. That doesn't exist. No one can tell you you're depressed unless they can show you all the neurotransmitters that are out of whack. But then you would have, it's made in the gut. So you better be able to do all the electrolytes, minerals, and vitamins sort of thing. Because that's what most people are missing, right? That's what they're all missing. They don't know how it is, and they haven't tested them, so I don't listen to them. It became that simple. So one of the things in here, we're going to go through a quick little things in here. Yeah, I don't go into a whole bunch of stuff. You can go into super soldier stuff. I've been with these groups for a long time, in and out, but you can go to people like who have an actual neurochip in their brain, confirmed, is an N2 uplink chip, is Sabrina Wallace. You listen to her synergy groups and she'll give you a whole different viewpoint of what the mind control and the hypnotic suggestions and what they're doing through the wide body area network to people, that people are assuming that they're all actually super soldiers, and they're not. So one of the things in here is taking a look at that. And the thing is that most people do not know how to do raw foods. They think they're eating vegetarian or vegan, and they don't know the raw foods. And that's where Marcus Rothkrantz and Kara Brotman come in, or people that are educated properly in that. But one of the things in here, let's take a look on just a quick thing, because this is, I give this a lot to my clients. So I will show you this, what we're looking at here. Just take a look. Okay, this is under my Karenann MacDonald one, because it'll be July or August before I can get you. So I have another one called K.A. Lusick. Anyway, here's one thing that most people have never seen. These are sitz baths. That's where you actually take the toilet, put your herbs, oils, and tea bags and nutrients and essential oils and salts and mineralize yourself. You can sit on it. Okay? This is one of the best antidepressants in the world, by the way, in case you don't know that. It actually penetrates in. It can be healing inside out and biofield. You can look up how to do that. Number one thing for mental and emotional health and emotional purging, self-esteem, stagnation, lymphatics, also for killing off viruses, bacteria. Number 15, mood stabilization. Okay? My number one healing. People can do it weekly. They can do it I've got couples that do it every day. The other thing too is taking yoni pearls if you're a female. So basically herbal tea bags in fabric in the vagina for a couple days over a period of a month or two. Getting rid of the biofilm. This is why this is the biggest cause to basically psychiatric and psychological, mental and emotional disorders, is the colon is blocked up from the biofilm. So until you start to do this, start doing herbal cleanses and herbal detoxes, that's what you're looking at. All the essential oils. You want something, you want to feel happy, I challenge anyone to make this. You can either, rather than buying it, you can actually get it. It's tangerine orange, ylang ylang patchouli. So I could go to Key Aroma Shop, Nevessence, New Aromatics, Directions, Healing Solutions, whatever I want. There are lots of bulk organic essential wholesalers where you're paying $5, $6, $7, $7 a bottle, not 30, by the way. Okay, one of the best things is getting the salt water. This is what electrolyte imbalance looks like. Taking some salt water. That's all it is. It's making Soleil or salt water, saline every day. That's the key. You know, cleaning out the colon. A lot of stuff we take is essential oils, right? Powerful. These are thousands of times more powerful than actually psychiatric drugs and pharmaceuticals and psychedelics. These are here blended to help to calm the emotion that changes the brain in minutes. However you want to take it. Those are one of my fast ways to do it. This biofeedback, if you go down to here and look at the essential oil desk reference, and now all you have to do is go to archive.org and put in the essential oil desk reference, and then you will come up with all the recipes for anxiety, depression, whatever your condition is, A to Z. This is the easiest thing. They cross by frequency. We are frequency electrical beings. So in other words, when someone is depressed, they're below 60 megahertz. It's simple. Okay, that's where candida, yeast, and fungus, even possession or implants, are due to that. So all we have to do is vibration and frequency by using different oils. And so the oils that we use are all in here. It's easy enough to do. These are not difficult things to start getting cleaned out. All of that, getting rid of the toxins and putting in something positive. That's the key to this. So anyway, I wanted to leave that with you. It's been a wonderful hour. I'm glad you guys are here. Hopefully we gave you some great ideas here. I will put that essential oil desk reference into the chat room right now. And like I said, look at the essential oils, and if you want, I've started putting some of this into my Karenann Lusick, because there's no way anyone's going to be able, I will be able to talk to anyone on that other channel for like about 3 months. So if you're wanting to go into something here, then on Facebook is take a look at the K.A. Lusick one. I'll put that in. I would suggest some of these here. And again, as I said, I don't even like the term soldier. Okay, Valhalla say that it is actually the Valley of the Lost Soul, the soldiers, right? I think we should find some better words, superhero, superheroine, super something. But a soldier, no. And those are people that have been co-opted. Like, it's a soul that's basically a lost soul. And so I think we need to kind of watch some of our things in here. One of the last things I want to talk a little bit about, maybe two things. How many people have heard of Marcus Rothkratz in here, and Kara Brotman? Have you guys heard of who they are? Do you guys know who he is? This sounding, like you know what I'm talking about? Let's go to my favorite thing, which is teaching you on YouTube. Sabrina does it her way. I am going to do it mine in here. And one of the things in here, let's just take a look at some of the different ideas that you might, I don't know if you've used all of these, but let's take a look at what you think might be helpful. We looked at essential oils. We've looked at enemas and colonics. You have to actually clean out your old stuff. Like, poop is not poop. It's not just viruses and bacteria and old stuff that you need out here. It's old information stuck in the system. Okay? No joke. It's old information stuck in the system. So one of the things in here I want you is to look at Marcus Rothkrantz. And Marcus Rothkrantz, we're going to his page. It's called Marcus, M-A-R-K, like Mr. Fairy and Mark, markusproducts.com. And why do we want to look at that? Because I'm going to give you some free books here. More free information. I'm all about the free stuff today. Okay, so, and if you want to do stuff, get a hold of me. If you want a session, if you want to do things like that, I can do quick demos. I've got stuff for free, right to donations, right to full-blown sessions, right? So in here, let's take a look at this. markusrothkrantz.com. That will be chat room today. I want you to go in here. The guy is brilliant. I've been with Marcus and Kara for like a decade. So you don't have to do the nutrition, but what I do want you to go in here is it says, get our best seller for free. Ooh, by the way, see the guys do enemas and colonics too. Raw, healthy, amazing recipes. So we're going to go look at this free download here. Okay. All this stuff in here is that you can download this book for free. In here, there are recipes, there are what to buy, how to eat your food, because it's not about being vegetarian and vegan. Quite frankly, it's not. It's about keeping the integrity intact. And that is what I want to actually show you, because we're going to go back and take a look at that here in a second. I'm putting this back in here into the Marcus Rothkrantz, and you want the Heal Yourself 101. Okay, that's it. Heal Yourself in free PDF. Download it here. Okay, and that will go into the chat room too. Okay, this is not costing you anything. This is a 15-minute read. He could have been more gracious to put things out than I don't know what. Absolutely stellar book in there. I agree with. Like I said, making that difference in here, finding yourself, confusing everyone. It's almost like doing that here. But the other thing I wanted to do is to show you what he did. He has got a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel is called The Healthy Life. I'll show you what he also did. He has got a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel is called The Healthy Life. Okay, so in here, you've got recipes, and there's him and Kara Brotman. Kara Brotman was one of the first raw superfood chefs ever that was out there in restaurants with her brother years ago. So look at their 40s and 50s. I would put them up against almost anyone in here. Once you can start getting into this YouTube area, you are going to be blown. We'll just wait till it actually gets in there. But one of the things in here is that what you're seeing is that these recipes are incredible. And there's a playlist here of 166 videos I just gave you guys. Okay? And now that we don't have to blitz all of our eyeballs here, let's take a look at it. Okay, this is from, again, The Healthy Life. Okay? And they teach you actually how to keep it intact. What are vegan milks? This is not about going down and having Earthwise and Planet this and picking up the carton of milk. Those are all been, again, processed. So we want to start getting into things here, how to make things healthy, how to work with dehydrators. And if you don't have a dehydrator, and get a cheap one off Marketplace or something, basically what you can do is you can go in and get your oven and open it up and keep it under 200 degrees or 180. Okay, this is where you're going to see how the food is kept intact. And once you keep it intact, this is where you're going to start learning. But here's what foods are. And this is where you can actually see some really cool recipes. They have an entire recipe book called Love on a Plate. Many, many years ago, they were all on tour and went all over the place. And they basically were on all your top shows, and they would make them recipes, and they would basically make healthy mac and cheese, healthy pizzas, okay, healthy cheesecakes, all sorts of things in here. So again, I would suggest you take a look at it. And Marcus was actually one of the consultants to the military, by the way, for radiation. So there's a cute thing here, how to make, hot, chocolate, marzipan, things like that. These are not expensive, and these are things you can go down here with making your slaws and stuff like that. Great way of snacking. So here's one of the best antidepressants. And again, food is to be thy medicine, and I think that's one of the top things I could seriously recommend for anyone. So anyway, sounds great. And if you want, again, I'll put my email and stuff like that in the chat here. One of the things is take me up. You haven't had a 10, 15-minute session with me? I challenge you to do that. A lot of people, like I said, things can be always worked out. There's always a way. I have never turned anyone down, ever, right? Unless they cross the line with me. But as a client, I've only had to remove a couple people in all these years. There are certain things in here. So let's take a look at that on how to do that. So question, Rachel. Karen, do we think we're going into a lockdown? Thank you. Yes, that's my information. And I hear it's going to be way tougher than what you thought it was. They're prepared for a couple years. You guys need to really get your stuff together. So yes, there's going to be a change in the financial system probably in July. I was listening to Chief Pontiac. He goes by Rod Hayes, by the way. And he was saying as well, what their information as well is that they're going to put the new financial stuff into place probably for July the 4th. And then what happens is that it's supposed to go to the matriarchs of those tribes and territories, or territorial matriarchs or clan mothers. In other words, the clan mothers will be replacing the queens, or are the queens in your estimation. And they would get their chiefs into place to start doing this. But the local territories will have the ability then to start making their own currency as well, replacements. And, it was gift, it was barter, and there things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff coming down the road that he had a really amazing talk as to what, they saw it was. And I posted it on my Inner Truth group. So if you're not there, I'll show you that too. So one of the things in here as we take a look at some of this stuff is that where is the easiest way? So like I said, if you want a quick thing, and like I said, a lot of people, how we dealt with people that took things up their nose and in their arms are going to be totally different therapies, okay? I can't do the same thing. So there's no one straight answer on anything anymore. Not that there ever was. But anyway, a lot of stuff you want to look at this right here. KLAN Mother 13. Do not use a C because poor Linda will have to send me all my stuff. But anyway, that's one way. And then the other thing you're going to see that I have here is a truth data group. Okay, this you can come into. Okay, and if you haven't seen my talk, I did one with Danny Henderson at the Galactic Spiritual Informers, conference and contact. Okay, so I did that a couple of weeks ago. And I like to mix everything up in here. So if you want to go in here, we can put you into the Intel group. Okay, and that way, no problem putting them in there because I've got about 40, 50,000 between the groups, and it's sometimes a little bit combobulated. But either KA Lucic or try this if you're going to Facebook. I've also got X, Twitter, all sorts of things, IG, Telegram, whatever. But the best ways to get a hold of me is by email. Okay, so that's always easy. So a lot of people, like I said, I've been told there's going to be a lot of stuff. You need to be prepared. I've put this into place. That's why I went through that little list with you of things to do, getting aloe vera, getting your oils, getting your chlorine dioxide or MMS or whatever you want, having baking soda. Some of this is not, hard. The other thing too is meal replacements. I was going to show you my favorite thing here as we're talking about the meal replacements before we go. I wanted to show you what's a really easy way that will keep everyone healthy and abundant. You can also get your, as you call, seeds. I have heirloom seeds. Why does everyone not have seeds and not have sprouting seeds on top of it? Okay, go get some things on organic, heirloom, or whatever, but sprouting, because all you need is water, and you're making your own salad, like it's growing out of there. Who needs a $300-400, tower garden? You can get a Mr. Stack and do the same thing for $50 rather than 3,000. So there's a bunch of stuff. But one of the things I've always told people to do is to get something, which is something like phytoberries. Okay. And I don't know if you guys know about this, but this is about getting the integrity and getting the best antidepressant. Oh God, children just love this. Okay. You see this? It's called, there's Blanade, but right next to it is something here called Progressive Phytoberries. The company also makes Progressive Greens. You can't always find the phytoberries. Sometimes you have to order it on Amazon. You have a small version and you have a larger version, and they go between, I think, $30 and $50 or something. I will tell you that there are something like 60 natural superfoods in here. And what we're talking about is superfoods. If you think you're a superhero or like a super soldier, you should be eating superfoods, and almost like not out of like what you're saying here. There isn't nutrition in the garden. Organic foods in the garden don't have a lot. It's not just about everything's contaminated, because it's about the degree of food and degree of nutrition. The fastest way to actually neutralize is essential oils with something like this, because there are 28 pounds dehydrated into a pound. So that little container there would represent 28 pounds of fruit that's been dehydrated, not the powder. So this can be then reconstituted into your food, into your drinks, into your bliss balls, into whatever you want. That's one of the best antidepressants as well. And it's absolutely bloody amazing. Having things like that, like I said, is phenomenal. And when you look at the phytoberry, I mean, it's just like taking strawberries and raspberries, and if you like that kind of thing, it's great. But the antioxidants, I mean, that's where medicine is. Geez, if we had everyone on this, like seriously, you would have a psychiatric department, stuff like that. And that's really like, that comes down to bottom line, what's going on, when you start looking at these type of things. But when you start seeing, well, what's in the phytoberry, it's absolutely like, I mean, it's mind blowing what's on the back of this. If you've ever read these labels here, I'm just like, holy geez, it's in there. It's just absolutely wonderful. There isn't anyone I haven't talked to that doesn't like it, and this is food, by the way. Okay. We're not talking junk. We're not talking filler. We're not talking any of this. So one of the things here, I'll just go to the back screen, read the label. I read labels. Am I the only one that read labels? I don't think so. In here, right? Beta carotene, vitamin A. Look at this whole second page is just the berries dehydrated in there. Goji berry, acai, pomegranate, Indian gooseberry, mangosteen, prune, blueberry, raisin, cranberry, you name it. Apricots are in here. Black currants are in here. Elderberries, green tea's in here, right? Then you got botanicals, apple extract. So like I said, things is looking at this phytoberry, right? That is what I've got packed away. Get a couple of those and you won't care if the stores aren't open for a week or 2 or 3. So those are some different things. So have some fun, and you have to live in the moment and do what you can. Enjoy every moment. So what? There's a lockdown. I'm just going camping for however long it's going to be. You get your essential oils. I feel happy every day, or happier. And I'm not saying you have to be Smurfy happy, but we could be like happier than we are, right? Get them going. Like, enjoy that. Give that bliss. Try those things out, right? So if that makes sense, that's where I would start. You have to be able to stand in your power. You got to remember, with the CMEs and the stuff that's going to be coming through the air, and they are directing the stuff coming through the sun and soul gates. They are directing those plasma energies. And, whatever you want to call them, CMEs and solar flares and solar maximums and all that, they are directing that. And the more non-organic material or non-natural, not nature's, made by nature, you are a nature being, right? You are a nature elemental. When you start putting artificial and synthetics in you, that's what's going to catch the people, right? That's what's going to burn. So those are some of the things in there. So like I said, we test your, nutrition. I don't know, maybe your vitamins too low, maybe your dopamine's too low. And then you can start playing with these. Let's do a round of this. Why not? Because I'm in the mood today, right? Get a bunch of them. This is a no-brainer. Like, seriously, these are no-brainers. You got the plain tunes, and then you got the weighted ones, right? In the air, on the body, on your beam, on the avatar, on the acupuncture points, with essential oils. They always work better with essential oils. They also work better when you're alkaline. Best antidepressant. If you're not allergic to baking soda, then we'll get you some alfalfa pills or something. Again, you've got to be alkaline. The more you have biofilm, the more you have any kind of drugs. What are pure drugs? Pure acid. It's acid to the brain. That's why it shuts down the brain, doesn't know what to do. Get some music. Go play with friends. Right? You get a little singing bowl. If you don't want to go get the big crystal ones that cost you hundreds of dollars, get one of these little ones. They're fine. You got to have fun, in here. And so one of the things too is that we have got to, and again, we're telling people, there's stuff coming through the air. We've been hit by white stuff, brown stuff, fake pollen stuff. Okay. We had in this area 2 days ago, there was plasma. There was massive sonic booms that shook stuff. That something was exploded. And exploded and exploded. And then there was plasma stuff, lightning and thunder. No, that was plasma stuff. Those are direct energy weapons. We were getting discombobulated out here. Okay? That stuff is hitting the ground. And seriously, until you guys can do container gardenings and start doing sprouting. And if you are going to do a garden, my gosh, you should be digging at least 2-3 feet down and doing a wallopini. You should have sunken below the earth, or at least 2-3 feet below the earth. And then put something like a plastic or glass or whatever up top, because that's what's going to happen. You can't protect those. It's going to come through the air. So one of the things in there is go out and have some fun. So like I said, a lot of people, the more alkaline you are, there are different things. Tony Pantaresca and I talk about different ways to do copper. It's not just about wearing copper rings and copper bracelets and stuff like that. It's about how you do it. He's got a triple braid that he's brilliant on, right? And do you have a Faraday cage? I did. I just went and showed 2 people. I've only been here a week, and I've already showed 2 people how to do the aluminum smart meter mesh shield for under $10. Get it on your smart meter. So those are what you have to do. You have to make a distinct difference in there. And like I said, you need to be in the right place at the right time. And everyone is in the place, apparently. And if you're not, then you need to move. It's no different than me. Things are coming. We move. Right? You want to do it, it will line up to go. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend. Great Mother's Day. For those of you mothers, have mothers, want to be mothers, and again, it's not about even the biological thing. Who's feeling maternal? Mystifying Mark is feeling maternal and stuff like that. Go out and have fun. We're having a water day. I'm going with my girlfriend. We're going to go listen to some free bands and do that. We're going to go explore nurseries. How many of you are going? Forget about buying plants. Go to a nursery. You want to feel some life? Go to a nursery. Go to something like that where you see life and enjoy it. Just go around and smell it. God, that's free aromatherapy, guys. That's what we're going to do this weekend. Go in there. It doesn't take an awful lot to do that, right? Anyway, go in, bon nuit, and we'll see you next week. And do take a look at that. It's called Being Human with Jennifer. And I just did a show, and we will see you guys later. And as I said, contact me. Vanna, you want something? Mark, you want something? Rachel, get a hold of me. I'm quite happy to take those calls, take those Zooms. Sometimes it's just really something quick. We can do it in 10, 15 minutes. You don't know. Okay, take care. Ciao.